I'm so happy you're here. I am so happy. I just counted this. I think this is my 13th Back to Basics. Isn't that odd? I feel like it's just started. I feel like the time has just flown by, and we just started doing Back to Basics, right? But actually there's 13 videos. And then this week is gonna be, this one's gonna be pretty simple. It's gonna be a pretty quick tutorial, but it's gonna be how to do snow on trees. And I'm going to be using, hi Nell, I'm gonna be using the Watercolor Snowman set. And I know you guys, it's my fault. I didn't get you guys these very early, but I'm gonna be using these two trees, okay? And then also from the Watercolor Fir Trees set, I'm gonna be using this one right here. Okay. I know, Ginger, isn't that crazy? Hi, Velda. I know, I feel like we just started. I literally feel like I just came on for my first live and was like, okay, everyone, we're gonna do a Back to Basics series. And here we are, 13 videos, 13 weeks in. Just like crazy to me. I know, because we're all so happy, Ruthann. Oh, to see me. Oh, thank you. Well, I feel the same about you. 13 is nothing, yes. Oh, good, Renee, I'm so glad. I'll be quick, she said. I know. And I have been trying to be more like, here's the instructions, especially for the people who are watching on YouTube. They can't see your comments. And so if they can't make it to the live, then they go to the YouTube and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to find like a happy medium in between. Hi, Victoria. I know. It's one of those things. It's a practice. And you know what? It seems like an hour is long, but when I do like my classes and stuff, I could go on for hours. I mean, I feel like there's so much to teach that I could just go on for hours. And I also just love hanging out with you all. Oh my goodness. Barbara, I tried to play some this weekend and couldn't get it to stamp good. Am I not getting enough color on it? You know what you could be? You know, a big part of this technique is the pressure you put on the stamp. So if you, what I would recommend is make sure that you have a nice flat surface. The table actually I work on is really indented, and if I don't have like a stamping like mat, I don't get a good image. So I don't know if that might be contributory or not, but practice, use a little bit more ink and make sure you're using the side of your marker, the side of it, okay? Don't color like this, color like this. And I hope that helps you. Oh, you did, Amanda, bust that thing out. I'm like, come on, what's the word? Bust it out. Thanks, Nell. Oh, good, Valda. I'm so glad. Hi, Dee. I loved your tutorial, by the way. Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody. Hi. Okay, so I showed you the sets we're gonna do, but I didn't show you what we would actually be making. So today we're gonna use those two trees, and I'm gonna show you two ways how to use them, okay? And the first way is just how it was sort of meant to be used, which is going to be just snowy, and I'm going to show you how to put all those little shadows in, which makes the white pop forward, okay? And then the other, thank you, Lindy. The other one we're going to do is this one, and that one is going to be actually the same tree, but we're going to use a little bit different technique in how to get it to look like this. But they're both basic, and don't worry about, you know, whether this is intermediate. It is basic, so you can do it, okay? If you have the only thing you need for this one is the Molotov, okay, so that we can mask out those the little snowy pieces, and then also the fir bough from that pine tree set, okay? Okay, so I am going to just give another just really quick hello to everybody, because this is where we're gonna start it on the YouTube, okay? So I've been trying to be more like, you know, easy for a video editor who happens to be my brother. And he spends a lot of time trying to be like, okay, where am I gonna start the video? Okay, so I'm gonna start for YouTube right now, okay? So hi everyone, welcome back to Basics with Kendra Krebs. Today we are going to be doing some snowy trees. So let's get started. And I'm going to flip the camera. Okay. Let's get that flipped. All right, everyone. Okay. So I should be flipped over here. Everybody seeing me okay? All right. Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you. Hello, hello. Okay, so the items that I need for this are the watercolor snowman set. So this guy, and I'm going to be using these two trees right here. And then also this watercolor fir tree set. And I'm just going to use this little guy right here. You can also use this one. Either of them is usable for this. And actually any of these would be great. All right, any questions? None so far. Okay, so the projects are going to be this one, which is just your snowy trees. And this is basically how this tree was intended to be used. And let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see there's a lot of shadows in here, lots of highlights. So you will learn how to do that. This is very, very basic, and it's great for your snowy scenes, okay? And then the other one is going to be this one, which some of you may recognize this one from another YouTube video that actually my mom did with one of the simple scenes. And she showed you how to use this tree and make these images, all right? So hi, Kathy, great to see you. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my watercolor paper, and I'm going to use the smooth side for this, but you really can use either side. Okay, so we're gonna start with our basic snowy trees, which was the first one I showed, okay? I'm going to get my large tree and my small tree. So I'm just gonna use both of these so that you can see how to do it, but it's going to be the same technique on both. So if you're following along with me and you are a little bit slower than me, don't worry, because I'm gonna show you on the other one as well. So it's going to take a little bit longer, and then you can hopefully, by the time I'm finished with this one, catch some good tips and tricks and be able to also stamp along with me without me going too far ahead, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start with the bigger tree here. And I'm gonna use 565. And I'm gonna go just like this. And I'm gonna ink that up. Now I want to stamp this off. I don't wanna use it right off the bat because this is actually pretty dark. This blue has a ton of color, so I'm gonna stamp it off twice. And I'm just gonna give it a stamp right onto my paper, and you can see how nice and light this is. Kimberly Ann is on. Hello, Kimberly. It's gonna snow in Edmonton tonight. Oh no. Okay, same color, 565. And I'm going to ink this one up. And I'm going to once again stamp this off just so I don't have it so dark. If you have it really, really dark like that, it's going to be super heavy on your paper and it will be hard to control some of that blue if you don't stamp it off. So I highly, highly recommend stamping off for anything to do with snow, okay? And I'm gonna get out my palette here. So this is 565. It's the same color that I stamped these trees in. Okay, so 565, and we are gonna take our brush. This is really, really easy, you guys. And you're gonna take this brush, and for those of you who have not joined me for Back to Basics, I want to just mention, this is something I like to mention a lot. If you have a brush that's really dry, you need to open up the bristles and let the air pockets out. Okay, this will change the way your image looks because it's consistently wet throughout the brush. If you have dry patches in there where the air is, you're going to have some skipping in the colors, and then some areas will be really wet and other areas will be really dry, okay? So I'm gonna take my brush, and right underneath these little snowy piles on each of the layers of the tree, that's actually where your shadow is gonna go. Okay, so we're going to take the color and actually pull it down onto the next layer. So notice I'm just keeping my shadows underneath. So the top of this area, that's gonna be left white because that's gonna be where the highlight is on the tree. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit further, and I'm gonna just do the same thing down here. So you're gonna pull from the layer or the level above it and pull down to create a little shadow. And we're just gonna start building this. Okay, because we didn't use a heavy ink on the stamp, we can't expect to get a ton of ink out onto the tree, but that's why we have our palette here, okay, so that we can add additional color from the palette to the paper. Okay, so I'm gonna take that 565, just a little bit, and I am gonna start just putting in a little bit more of that shadow. And I don't have to put as much if I don't want to, or I could put a little bit more. And I'm always, you know, I always love to answer your guys' questions. So if you have any, put them in the chat and then I will read them aloud and answer. Okay, so I'm just going to blend a little bit of this out. And come down here. Do you see how I'm just blending with my brush? It's just a little bit of water and I'm blending that out. Same thing down here. I'm going to put some more color down in there. And now you can see these edges, these white edges right here, they're really starting to pop out, huh? So if you have these little white edges, I'll put a little shadow there. You have these white edges and the darker, more contrasted areas on the tree are gonna push those out. So it's gonna look like they're lifted up. And I'm gonna go down here and do one more little layer, and then I'm gonna let this dry while I do a bit in the background. But I want this to be nice and dark. You know, when I put this last layer in and it's the darker of the layers, I'm using less and less. So see how far down this layer comes? I don't want to go that far with my last layer here. I just want it to be very, very close to the underside of the tree because that's actually where it's going to be the darkest, right? So as you come out on the tree, it's going to get lighter until you get to this edge where it's white. Do we see that? Okay, and I can always just blend out any more if I want to, just using my brush. Put a little bit of a spot there. Hi, Vicky. Great to see you. Hello, hello. So happy you made it. Okay, and we always want to put a little shadow underneath the tree because it's kind of sitting here, right? So we do want just a bit of a shadow here, and it can be uneven because the tree is going to have a lot of little boughs and unevenness. So don't worry about it being just perfect. And then we can always put our background in, which I've really been loving doing lately. Okay, so I'm just going to put that little shadow under there. Oh, Tony, you can do it, girl. You can totally do it. I've seen your work. I know what you're capable of. Okay. I see a grumpy face. Oh my word, Barbara. Barbara sees a grumpy face on the top 3 layers. That is so funny. I see it too now. That is too good. Oh my. He's mad. It's snowing. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to start the other tree now. If you're still working on this one, don't worry about it. It's okay. I'm going to be doing the exact same thing over here. So you can just take your time. And then, of course, I'll always repost the video and for your reference, if you missed some parts of it or it was too fast for you, you can certainly rewind. All right. Hi, Jenny. You remembered. I am so happy to see you. Oh my goodness. Yes, Lorna. I love seeing where everyone's from too. Okay, I'm going to just like I did before, I'm going to start pulling down some of these little shadows here, okay? And I'm going to start at the top again. Sometimes I get ahead of myself and I'm like, I want to start down here. But the more you do it in routine with the shadows, you won't, the less likely you are to miss one of the little shelving areas, I guess, the little areas underneath the layers, okay? And then I'll put a little bit down in here. And we can have a bit of a shadow down in here. So it doesn't need to be perfect. Just get your brush in there and have fun with it. You know, the shadows are gonna look a little bit different from tree to tree. And the smaller shadow or the smaller tree, you're not gonna be able to fit as many shadows in this one because it's just smaller. Yes, it does, Jean. Jean says it looks like the hat from Harry Potter, the sorting hat. Yes, it does. It needs like a little like brim right here. That's too funny. It does. Oh my goodness, I just love you guys. Oh, that's too good. Okay, I'm going to take my brush and just come back under here. And I'm going to keep just adding these little tiny darker shadows. And this is indicating that this goes back. It goes further back. And we're also pushing up the little fir bough layers, okay? I'm going to just smooth some of these out. And just like so. Okay. Now I'm going to take, and actually I need a little bit more under here because I missed this layer underneath. All right, so now I'm going to take my detailed tip of the blue. This is the twin tone. I'm going to take the twin tone, the tiny tip of this, and I'm going to, am I on camera? I think I'm just maybe zoomed in a little too much. I'm going to just put some of these, which I just made his little frown even more pronounced, huh? I'm just going to put some of this underneath. And that is going to push out that white even more. And then the same thing over here. just on some of the areas. I'm not going to trace this. I'm just on some of the areas putting just a few little darker contrasted areas in. And that's pretty much it for these snowy trees. These are really, really basic. You can do this for any of your little snowy scenes. I'm going to go back in and just smooth these out just a touch. And pull this out just so that they aren't so defined. I do want them to still blend out a little bit, just like that. Okay. So we have our little trees here. Okay, so you can do these trees, like I said, with any of your snowy themes. These are just the cutest little guys. I love them. And I'm going to put this little background in, just like we've kind of done in the past. Okay, so that is the one with the snowy trees, okay? So for the one, and actually they're all snowy trees, but that's the one that this set was kind of made to do, okay? Now, there's another way that we can use this tree, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And that is going to be these little guys, which I think are also so super cute. And me too, Tony. I love them. I think they're so cute. They're so pretty. All right. Don't worry, Terry. Practice is going to give you more confidence to do these things. Like, you really will. And, you know, as you learn to stamp with these and as you become more familiar with them, and I think you've probably been stamping, but the snow itself, it does take a little bit of practice. So, you know, that's really easy to say, practice and you'll become, you know, better. Obviously, we know that. But if you do, it's not that you'll be better, it's that you'll be more confident to know where to put your brush. And then you'll be more happy with what you make. Okay? This is so fun to learn these techniques. I know, Debbie, isn't it great? I love to go back to the basics and just sort of refresh myself or learn something new. You know, you could be doing these stamps for years and years and never have done snow before, or never have done, you know, never known where to put your shadows. So that's kind of my hope for these little tutorials, these little back to basics videos, is that you would feel confident to go in and try something new, okay? All right, so I'm gonna take a new piece of paper here. When I'm outside, I look at trees more too. I know, isn't that funny? I forget who mentioned that the first time, a couple weeks ago. She said, you know, all I see now is like Art Impressions watercolor trees when I'm driving. And I was like, that's so true. And now you're saying it, Terry. It's true. It's like you start stamping with these and you're like, wow, I'm seeing a lot more like inspiration too. And I'm seeing how the shadows and the highlights kind of play together. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, now we are going to take those same trees and we want to get our paper or stamp off paper here, which, by the way, if you're new and you're stamping off, you want to stamp off on watercolor paper. Just have a piece of paper that's dedicated to stamping your stamps off. That's what we do. We have, you know, a piece of paper just right next door. This is something that we've come to absolutely love, is to just have one right next to where you're working, and then you can just quickly stamp off and go forth, okay? So I'm going to use that same color, that 565, and I'm going to ink that tree up again in the same way that we did before, but this time it's going to be really stamped off. So we just want a small remnants of this tree, okay? So that's probably good. I am going to stamp that right there. So that's really light. And then I am going to take the small one and 565. And I'm going to ink that one. And I'm going to also stamp this one off, just till I have a very light image. And I'll stamp that one down too. Okay, now that I have those stamped down, now I'm gonna get my Molotov out, or my Molotov, however you say it. Hi, Pat. And I'm gonna shake it up really good, okay? I'll shake it off camera so I don't make anybody dizzy. I'm gonna take this Molotov and I'm gonna zoom in just so you can really see this. Get it started. So what I do to get my Molotov started is just start dabbing it and it will begin to come out of the pen, okay? Now when this is dry, it's gonna act as a mask. So I'm going to just come in and I'm gonna put the Molotov mask over where I know that the snow would lay on these trees. So it doesn't need to be perfect. Hello, Nancy. It does not need to be perfect, but we're just going to kind of dab on some of this Molotov onto the trees. And you can see I'm sort of keeping it off the very edges, but you can go out to the edge. It doesn't really matter. It's just where the snow is going to be sitting in this tree. This light tree is really just a guide for us to be able to stamp in our fir boughs and to be able to put in our Molotov masking fluid with ease, so we're not guessing sort of where these branches are. This is just a little, it's just a, it's a guide. And then I'll come in here and I can just press that down if I need a little bit more. Same thing here. And we're gonna just go in there. Now, if I have some advice for you, it would be to let your first layer dry and then go back in with another layer of the Molotov. Okay, because if you just do one layer, let me just show you, you will have something like this, which is still beautiful, but you will have some of that green come through. Okay, so you do want to have two layers. I personally absolutely love this look too. So if it happens, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. You can always use your Uniball marker or your little pen, your white pen, and put some highlights back into your trees, okay? But just so you know, if your Molotov is not thick enough, you will get some bleed through. So I'm just going to continue on with where I think my snow would be on here. This one, by the way, is the 4.0, but the 2.0 would probably be a little bit easier. I actually let somebody borrow my 2.0, so I'm using the 4.0 right now. And either one works. It's just that the smaller one is a little bit easy to handle when you're doing the smaller images here. Okay. Oh, Pat, thank you. Molotov. Okay, great. I honestly, I think these do come from Germany. This has been a question that I have had for years on how to pronounce this. Yes, made in Germany. Okay, Molotov. Okay, thank you. That has been that has been a question that we've had for, I can't even tell you how long. Okay, you don't have issues getting it off. No, Renee, I don't. I usually just, I put it on and then when it's dry, I'll go back in and just go right over the top again. Sometimes if it's a little bit older, which I think this one might be, it does come off when I go to erase it off. It does come off a little bit more loosely than if it's a newer pen. So it's going to be a little bit stickier when it comes off, but it's going to do the job. It's not a big deal. So this is what I do. I go over it twice when I want it to be really light, okay, underneath. Yes, Jean, there is a 2.0 and a 4.0. Okay, so I actually have one that's already completely dry. So in the interest of time, I'm going to just use this one because I generally will let it dry for a good 6, 7, 8 minutes, okay, just to ensure that it is dry, because I don't want to start stamping on this when it even has a little bit of wetness. And when you're making it nice and thick, sometimes you can have it be still wet and you want to make sure it's nice and dry, okay? So this one's really hard to see, this tree, but it is there underneath. And if I zoom in really close, you can probably articulate that just a little bit here. And that is my guide. You can see the tree under here. It's literally the same thing that I just did, but it's the dry version, okay? All right. I am going to take now my little fir bough. And this one is, and actually, I want to see, I've got the bigger one, which is great. The bigger one works awesome as well. I was gonna see if I could find the little one just to show you, but I don't think, oh, here's the little one. And you know what, I think I would rather work with the little one on this. I used the big one for my samples and it was fine, but because these trees are pretty small, I think I'm going to stick with this smaller one. So this one is using the big bough. So it's honestly, if you just grab for either one, it's totally fine. You're welcome, Nancy. Nancy said, thanks for giving the tip on 2 coats. No problem. Okay. So I am going to take that little bow, the little fir bough, and that one's going to be, so initially I said I was using this one. I grabbed the smaller one, this one, and either of those would work just fine. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to use number 177. Hi, Leslie. Good to see you. Oh, yay. You're very new to stamping and painting. Well, you've come to the right place. We are all big fans of stamping and painting. Okay, so I'm going to ink that with number 177. And I'm going to start by stamping. Oh, whoops. So if that happens and this part becomes less sticky, which does occasionally happen, you will just take a little wet wipe. You know, these things, they can attract some dust or oils from your hands or whatever. So you just take a little a wipey, like a little wipe, and you're just going to cleanse off the back side of that stamp. Just like this, and then you should be absolutely good to go. All right. So I'm going to put that back onto my little acrylic block. And then we're going to try this again. 177. And I'm not going to ink the whole thing. I don't know if you can see that in this light, but I'm just inking to about here. And then this I'm leaving plain because I just want to use what I need. Let's see, Tina, I'm not sure. That would be something you would probably have to sort of play around with. I heard somebody say rubber cement that they've tried, but I have not personally tried any other masking fluid apart from the Molotov. So I would maybe do a Google search on that. I'm sorry, I can't help you. And just in case I didn't repeat that question, Tina asked if I knew of another product apart from Molotov to get similar results. Okay, So now I'm going to take that stamp and I'm just going to start stamping, and these points are going to turn the more I come down, so that by the time I get to the bottom, as you can see here, so they start up and then they're going to twist, and as I go down, they're going to start pointing more south. Okay, so at first they're pointing up, and then I'm going to pivot that stamp and go down. Okay, Tina, good. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to ink this again, and I'm just going to begin to start stamping on one side, and you can see I'm just using this tree as a guide because it's just helping me to make sure I'm maintaining a good shape for this tree. And you can turn things as you stamp if that's easier for you, instead of wrenching your arm around. And then same thing on the other side. I'm just going to turn that just to help my arm. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make sure that all of this area is stamped in really well, because in order for the white masking to show through, I need it to be nice and dark in the center to give it a little backdrop, okay, a darker backdrop. Okay, hi Janet. You can totally catch up later. Totally up to you, because I will be posting the replay. All right, I'm gonna grab my water and I'm just going to start dabbing this and bringing this over. And notice I'm dabbing all around, just sort of ignoring those little Molotov spots that I created. I'm not intentionally going over them, but I am sort of ignoring them, but sort of moving around them just to add my water to the existing stamps, or the stamped images. So I'm dabbing these, dab, dab, dab. And I'm going to come over here and we have our little tree here. And it's going to feel really blobby right now because your highlights aren't really in there yet, because we haven't taken off the Molotov yet. And that's really where your highlight is going to be, because that's where the snowy areas are. Okay. And then same thing over here. We're going to just do this exact same thing. So if you're still working over here, or you're letting your Molotov dry, then you have time, because I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Same color, 177. And I'm going to start at the top using that tree as a guide. And I'm going to come down and just bring that over. This is the smaller tree. And I'll ink that. And we will just do the same thing all the way down that we did on the other side. How cute are these little trees? I love these. This is actually a really great technique too if you were just, if you didn't want to add snow and you just wanted it to be green. This is a really great way to get that greenery too. Is just use that tree as a guide. Okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start dabbing once again. And we're just barely touching these, dab, dab, dab. And you know what? This area down here is a little bit light, so I'm going to go back in once I dab these and just add in one or two more little boughs down here, because this is kind of light down here, which is okay. Yes, Barbara, you're going to ignore the Molotov. So Barbara says, it looks like you kind of ignore where the Molotov is, right? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So you're going to wait until everything's dry to rub off the Molotov, okay? And now that this is somewhat dry, I'm gonna go back in with that little fir bough and just add a couple darker little boughs into here because I want it to have a really strong base. And that's the nice thing about this is you can always go in and add more if you want to. Okay. And I'll just add a tiny bit of water to that. Don't need much. And then we'll let that dry. Now this one is dry. So I think my Molotov is probably going to be a little bit sticky, but that's okay. Now, one recommendation that I have for you when you go to rub off your Molotov is either use a watercolor eraser, which has like a little bit of a grit to it, or a white eraser. If you have a colored eraser, it will come off on your paper and it's going to be really hard to get that off. Okay, so I just used this one from Prismacolor. I just grabbed it and I know that that's totally dry. You don't ever want to try to take this off unless this is fully dry. Okay, because if you do, you're going to have a big mess. Okay, so you can see how this looks underneath. And I did put a couple layers of that Molotov, just so you know. Okay, so I'm pulling that off, and you can see how it looks like a snowy little tree. And I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna take the excess off of my eraser before I go back in. So anything like that, I'll just take off. Okay, but you can see how cute is this? It just looks like it's got some snow on it now. Now this is not done. We want to put in a little bit of a shadow where the snow is, okay? So we want to put in a little bit of shadow. I'm going to use that same 565. And we're just going to put this little shadow right underneath where the snow is sitting. And I did kind of come out kind of far on my boughs, but that's okay. It's totally fine. Snow is going to just hit, right? There's no telling snow where to fall. It's just going to fall where it wants to. So we're going to come over here and just put little shadows underneath the bottom of this snow. So you can see it looks like it's actually sitting on the tree now. I know, Tina, isn't that amazing? I know. And I want to show you the difference here between putting on the two layers and the one layer again just next to each other. So you can see the one layer here versus the two layer. So it will bleed through a one layer. You can see that, okay? And then this is the two layer. So I highly recommend taking the extra minute or two and adding another layer, and actually it'll be a little bit more than an extra couple of minutes because you're gonna have to let it dry as well. But definitely consider the double layer on that. Catherine says, there are special erasers for removing masking fluid and adhesives. They are square and they look like rubber cement. They work great. Oh, good, Catherine. Thank you. I'll have to look into those. Are those the ones that that you can like pull apart and stuff? I wonder. And they're square and they look like rubber cement. Okay, so they must be like a brown type square maybe. Okay, thank you for that tip though. I'm always looking for something to make my life easier. Yes, Vicky. Vicky says, if you want more white, can you add white gel pen? Yes, you can. The Uniball is great. Really, really great for that. Okay, so we did this one. Now let's do this one over here, okay? So I'm gonna take my eraser. This is fully dry now. And I'm just going to take off that Molotov and remove just the little pieces that I get. And we'll just keep working this until all of it's off. And we have a really nice white base under there. All the blue's gone. Okay, I've got a little bit left on here. Kind of keeps moving around on me. Okay. Thanks, Georgia. Patricia asks, when I use Molotov, I cannot get it to rub off no matter how hard I rub. Any suggestions? I would suggest, Patricia, that you make it a little bit thicker. I had that problem when I would do a very, very thin layer. So if I were to do a layer sort of like this, and it was really, really thin, this is really hard to get off. But if you make it thicker, you're increasing the mass of that material. In this case, it's masking fluid, and it's going to be easier to grab your eraser when you go to take it off. So I remember having a similar issue to that. And so I recommend just doing it a little bit thicker on there, okay? All right, so I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to take that same 565 and we are going to do our little shadows in here again. And we're just going to add just a little bit of that dimension into here. So on each of the little snowy areas, you know, this is really fun because it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it doesn't really matter where the snow is. Like, it can just be anywhere. And that's just how the snow fell. So of course we want our little snowy shadow underneath of our trees. And I'm going to take that 565. I'm just going to keep taking this. So we've really only used just a couple colors today. But they go a long way when you're doing snow. And the same thing on the other side, we'll just take a little bit of that and we'll put some of the shadow here, and maybe we'll do a longer shadow this time. Maybe some darker areas under here. And a hill, another hill in the back if you want to. And now they're just sitting in the snow. So you learned how to do 2 snowy trees today. And here they are side by side. And let me just zoom out for you. I hope that you use these and I hope you learned a little something new today. Teresa asks, Kendra, would you do a sky? Sure. So if you do a sky with a snowy scene, you could certainly put in some snow, but I'm just going to show you how I would do a sky. And anytime you do a sky with like a snowy backdrop, you're going to want to add the darker sky behind. So I'm going to take that 565 and I would really darken up above the snow. So I would darken this up nice and dark so that it's going to sort of surround the snowy trees so that it pushes it forward just like that. And it doesn't have to go over and above. It can just kind of go wherever. And then what you're really looking to do is to highlight that tree and push it forward. So the darker that you have that background, the more it's going to push forward that tree. All right. And I can do a background on the other one too, or a little sky. I would do the exact same thing. So I don't want to put any really dark areas on the snow that I've already done. So I'm going to grab that 565 and I'm just going to make a nice dark sky next to these trees and push those trees forward. No problem. No problem. I always find a sky helps too, so thank you for asking that. I think a sky is really important, especially if you just do a little one. It doesn't have to be like, you know, really crazy sky with a million clouds and things like that. It can just be a really simple, you know, smooth wash in the background, which is going to give you the idea of a sky, which is what I typically go for. Yes, you can use, yep, Vicky, you can. Yep. I just don't have the time to have it dry and everything to show you guys, but you can use the Molotov to add little snowflakes in the background. Remember like we did in the seasons video, how we used the Molotov in the background and that was our snowflake. Same thing with the uni ball. You can just take that little uni ball and put little snowflakes in here. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to flip back around and I will wish you all a very happy evening. So one moment. Okay. Hello. Okay. So I hope that you enjoyed that tutorial. And oh, Renee, I love that idea. Yeah, you could just splash some white. You said a splatter of white paint. Great idea. I would love to see that. Yes, thank you all so much for coming. And just to recap, we used a 50/60, the watercolor snowman set with these two incredible trees, which I absolutely love. And then also the watercolor fir trees, which is 49/60. And I used this little one. I was gonna use this, either one is fine, okay? With that. And next week, I know you all are super excited about, you know, color theory and all that good stuff. So next week, we're going to do a color theory back to basics. And we're gonna go through some of my favorite colors and we're gonna pull out a color wheel and just kind of look at that and see why certain colors work really well together. And so for that tutorial, let me make sure I'm missing so many comments, you guys, I'm so sorry. For that tutorial, I'm gonna use 5123 and that's the watercolor decorative jar set. So don't mind the coffee I spilled on here. It's the watercolor decorative jar set. And I'm also going to be using the flowers and foliage, okay? Because I want it to be a very basic tutorial and I want to go through the color combinations that I really love and that I feel like work really well together. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining. And Tina, you're welcome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yay. Yay. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great night. Make sure to check us out on YouTube. This video will go live on YouTube. It is a higher quality than Facebook allows. So it is in HD. If you really like this and you want to see it with more clarity, I would check out the YouTube channel when we post this, but I will post the replay right now to Facebook. Okay. Definitely check out Art Impressions Instagram. Also, Bonnie Krebs Bible Journaling is on Instagram as well, and she's posting all kinds of inspirational posts for you to learn if you just cannot get enough watercolor. So we're here for you. Thank you so much for coming. Mwah. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye.